YouTube? I just finished up some TFT games and now I'm going to record the video. And I'm actually pretty excited to share today's build with you because I believe it's kind of a masterpiece. It took a lot of tinkering, and if you watched the stream today, it was a struggle at times. At times I thought this build was doomed, but it turns out that with enough perseverance and hard work and trial and error, you'll eventually come up with something that's like passable. This build was pretty much able to do the feared, and I'm pretty sure he could do everything. This character is currently level 88. I'll include some clips of a Deathless Maven. I haven't done an Awakener yet because of the Chaos Resist problem, but I was able to fix the Chaos Res problem. So the nice thing about this build is we're playing low life, dual wield Nebulis, Saqawals, and we're not dying to Chaos damage because we are not running Zealots. Oh, we are running Zealot's Oath right now, but ideally you don't run Zealot's Oath, and then you are able to get some life regen. And this life regen will pretty much cover any chaos damage you take. And right now I'm running Purity of Elements and using Chaos Res Watcher's Eye, so I have around 41% Chaos Res. Also taking one node in the tree right here real fast. I do plan to get up to 76% Chaos Res, because with the flash I'm at 76% Chaos Res, so it's pretty much like CI. You will come to learn that there's not that much Chaos Res in the Chaos damage in the game, and most of the Chaos damage in conjunction with Bone Armor, and Bone Armor is actually a complete game changer for this build. I actually feel like this Necromancer is probably just as tanky as a Scion build, and probably a lot tankier than the Scion variants at early to mid game, because Bone Armor is 2200, pretty much extra HP that's up like 70% of the time, and it has a pretty short cooldown of 3 seconds. So you can see that this Bone Armor is always up, and this Bone Armor actually mitigates the chaos damage before it hits your life pool, so it's actually very, very useful. And if you look at POB with the Bone Armor, our effective chaos HP is actually pretty high. It's like 15k, which should be more than enough to survive most of the stuff in this game. So this tree is looking a little better. I dropped a lot of the stuff over here. I took another cluster over here, and I do have a POB with 3 clusters that I'll go over real fast, because it turns out that POB is OP. With POB you don't even really need to like, what's it called, like do any trial and error in the game. You pretty much just use POB and you can figure out what's the best. You can copy and paste items into the game. You can make your own items. I personally believe that POB is like kind of ruins the game in a weird way, because it is kind of too good. It makes it a lot of the guesswork out of the build. There's no point in leveling up the build. Like you can look at the POB and someone can tell you 100% if the build will work or not, as long as they know what the skill looks like. So that's my 2 cents on POB. So I'm going to go over the gear overview for this build and tell you why exactly CI or low life can be played without SHAVS. So right now you can see that my character is actually pretty tanky at 4459 ES, 677 life. So that's around 5k effective HP. And then this Bone Armor is usually up. When the Bone Armor is up, it's another 2209 HP on top. So this is like a 7k HP build with Aurastacker defenses later on, since you almost at 90% all res. Purity of Fire, you probably need more RMR somewhere to run it, but right now I'm running Purity of Elements instead of Purity of Fire for the Chaos res. So eventually, if you fix the Chaos Res issue with medium clusters, then you're able to run Purity of Fire and you'll be at 90 all res, and you have 40% evasion. So all of that adds up pretty nicely. And I think the POB right now with the 3 cluster setup I have is around like 6 to 7 mil spark DPS, which is pretty respectable for the gear. And let's look at the gear overview. So for the gear, we have 2 Nebulises. Now, the main reason why I want to run 2 Nebulises is because the March of the Legion boots really benefits from having 2 Nebulises, because usually if you wear a shield, you use the shield as socketed gems have reduced reservation. Now if you look at it, we don't really have any 50% auras to run, so we only have Malevolence and Grace. So we're missing 150% aura, so that means the shield loses a lot of its effectiveness. And also when you're in the beginning of the game, the early game, the mid game, you're trying to do like boss fights, having the damage is more important than anything else, and it makes the game feel a lot smoother having like 30 to 40% more damage. And also,
When
that's
ready
why I
and not
went low
before.
life, right? Because I'm going Pain Attunement, so I have Pain Attunement damage and having the, what's it called, 2 Nebulis damage. So we can take a look at how much the, what's it called, the damage actually goes down if we don't do this setup. Because I don't really have any damage nodes on this thing. So I actually have a shield here as a demonstration. So say you use the shield, right? You're a little tankier. This is actually pretty tanky with the shield. But now we're at... Oh, so I need to put the Nebulis on in order to do this demonstration. So right now, damage is at 188k with all the auras up. If you have the Nebulis on, it's at 311k. You can unspec Pain Attunement, right? If you unspec Pain Attunement and don't go low life and you just play a CI variant, so this is for everyone who loves playing CI at the beginning. And you can see that the damage is 144k, which is pretty bad. 144k. So if you put in Pain Attunement is 188k, then you put in this thing, if auras are still on. So you can see the auras actually last for quite a while. The auras actually last for 36 seconds, so you just need to press 4 buttons every 36 seconds. You're at 311k instead of 144k. That's more than double the damage. So that's why I believe this setup is worth running. You do lose a little bit of ES, but it's not the end of the world. Obviously, in the end, when you get to endgame and you have better gear and better damage, then you will probably wear a shield if you just want to get tankier. But for right now, I think the best option is to run 2 Nebulises in the beginning. A Nebulus is also relatively cheap after the initial wave of Cortexes. And there's also the recipe where you can vendor, I think, 3 Nebuluses for the original roll, which is 40% LE damage, which is also extremely good. So I also have a Alpha's Howl with Malevolence Reservation. Another option is to get RMR on the amulet. Because if you look at this amulet right here, I do not have any RMR. And it's actually pretty trivial to get RMR on a, what's it called, Redeemer Amulet. So if you get a Redeemer Amulet with RMR, you could technically drop the Alpha's Howl and get a helm with like this. So you could easily make up 3% RMR on the necklace because you don't even need, what's it called, you don't even need the max roll to make it up. So I have this helm I bought. So this is a Hubris Circlet. You can use the Essence. It doesn't need to be Redeemer base. So this will give you like 169 ES if you put it on. Now the problem with this helmet is you don't have +2s. So it's actually kind of hard to run that. So that's something to keep in mind. So maybe if one day you run Hands of the High Templar here, then you would be able to do it. So you can see the gloves, I'm not even using Hands of the High Templar. I'm just using an Arcanist gloves with 200 ES. In the end game, it will be better once you can get like a +4 Hands of the High Templar. It will become better. So like a +4 LE weakness pair, or just a +4, I think would be better than the Arcanist gloves like this. And the Hands of the High Templar also have life, and life is actually pretty important because life is part of our chaos damage taken pool. So then we just have 2 Call of the Brotherhoods. You can try to get a Discipline implicit, but early on it's not going to be possible to get like corruptions this good. These corruptions are useless pretty much besides the Discipline. Now, a Saqawal's Nest is one of the main like factors of this build, and it's also one of the more expensive items in this whole setup. So what you want to get is 10% reduced reservation of skills, and then everything else is bonus. It's as long as it's 6 linked, it does not need to be 6 white. So what this chest allows us to do is, this build is extremely short on attributes, right? So we have 144, 163. So without the Saqawals on, we actually are unable to like use a lot of our strength gems and dexterity gems. So this chest is a lifesaver, and it gives us 10% RMR, which makes running auras a complete joke. With March of the Legion, that is. So this chest is pretty much irreplaceable, but usually when you think of CI, you think of bad damage, but with the setup with CI and double Nebulous, it's probably around the same damage as low life of RF. And I think it's actually probably easier because you don't need to worry about all attributes. And then you have this belt. I just use a crystal belt with some ES. So you pretty much just want ES, life, and chaos res on this belt. Fire res is irrelevant. So you can see some of the gear is pretty bad. And this, you just want an ES pair of gloves with some chaos res. If you're really trying to ball out, you would use Hands of the High Templar, or you can use like something of Coaling. And then March of the Legion. You pretty much want pen on these boots. I just haven't bothered to get a pair. So you can see overall, all the items are relatively cheap in this setup. In the end, The Saqawals makes up the majority of the cost. I don't have any unique flask on. You would obviously want to get Cinder Swallow Urn and Bottle Faith, most likely. So now here are some of the more expensive parts of the build. Intuitive Leap and Might of the Meek. I got 1% RMR on these because I was lazy to buy them, but you do not want to buy these with 1% RMR because they are very, very expensive. However, in the early league, if you can pick these up for like 4 to 5x, these are probably some of the best items you could buy because these go up to like 15, 20, 30x within like a week or two. So they're very good investment to buy early on. So you can see this tree, you're just taking the cluster nodes. Now this is probably the cluster I would go for. You get Essence Rush and Practice Caster. It gives you, what's it called, cast speed, and it gives you Avoid Stun. So ideally I'm going to run 3 of these, so whenever I'm casting Spark I actually cannot be stunned later on, as I'll show you in the end game POB. And then for these you want to run First Among Replenishing. You can do First Among Pure Aptitude. This one's probably going to be a little cheaper than First Among Replenishing. Then First Among Replenishing, First Among Replenishing, and then here you'll want more First Among Replenishing. Eventually, once you get the RMR, you will want to get Purposeful Harbingers, and you want 2 of them along with First Among. Now, First Among is actually pretty important here because each First Among gives us 20% duration on our March of the Legion. So if you look here, how long our ores last, they last for 36 seconds. So if we unspec one of the First Among, you can see that it goes down to 33 seconds or so. So each one of these nodes is huge, and it also gives us a lot of aura effect for damage. And let me show you. So these are pretty much all the things. You don't really need these nodes later on when you get the other cluster. It's kind of crazy. Like I mentioned POB a lot, and POB is actually very broken in terms of helping you out. So this is the end game tree I'm going to be running. I will include this tree in the description. So later on, you want to drop the ES nodes. You still have a lot of ES, 4176. You'll go down here, but you need to be like level 90 or 93. I went a little ham in the levels on this POB. So here you probably want to stay above 4k ES or so. And this is the pretty much the end game POB for me. I did try to look to get Ghost Reaver because Ghost Reaver doubles your lead, so you would have around like 20% regen. This tree is at 95, and it's probably pretty reasonable to be around 95 when you do the Fear, maybe a little lower. You should be around that level, I think. And I use Transcendent Flesh. You can see that the crit chance is low because it doesn't have a Bottle Faith or Hatred Crit Watcher size. So you can see, like, I always recommend getting Flasks after you get your initial stuff on the league launch. You can see that it's an insane damage increase. But obviously I'm not going to use it because everyone always complains how expensive the Flask is. But you can see that there is a huge crit problem. But the crit problem is solved with a Hatred Crit Watcher's Eye and a Bottle Faith. But you can see it's definitely still playable without that. And the large clusters, I just ran 3 of these. So you have Essence Rush, Practice Caster, Essence Rush, Practice Caster, Essence Rush, Practice Caster. And these are very, very cheap, like 30 to 40 chaos at league launch, I think. So you can see the damage is pretty respectable for the gear you put in. I took away the double damage Nebulis because the double damage Nebulis is cheating. And there are a lot of upgrades you can get. You can get a much, much better amulet. And you can get an amulet with, what's it called, with RMR on it, which would make it a lot easier. You don't even need to run Alpha Cell, actually, probably later on. So this is the POB. I'm actually pretty excited about this build. And it kind of makes me almost want to roll a Necromancer. Scion is probably better late game, but I actually believe that Necromancer is pretty tanky. These nodes right here are lifesaver. This bone barrier thing is insane. So usually you can just run Steel Skin. In reality, this is pretty much just Steel Skin, but it saves you a gem slot. Because what Bone Armor does is it lasts for 7 seconds,
when
right?
I'm ready and not
and this means that this life pool is added onto what you have, and it also applies for chaos damage. So the chaos damage would go to the Bone Armor or part of it before going to your life pool, which is why you can actually stay alive with 700, 800 life. Once you get better gear, you have more life on the belt, you have life on the amulet maybe, and you can get life on the gloves or helm. Then you probably have like 800 to 900 life unreserved, and you would be and you would just survive. Like having 76% chaos res, you can take a look at the POB here. Like, this is more than enough to stay alive, and this is at 70%. So if you just up it a little bit to 76%, then you should be perfectly fine. So this is, and then there's really not that much damage in the game that hits you that hard. The bigger problem is the fizz damage, like I said, but fizz damage can be mitigated through, maybe you just have a granite flask, you can use up a salt flask, or you use a taste of hate. You can also use a watcher's hide to convert the fizz to elemental. So the defenses are not the best for this build. Like, it's not going to be an endgame Aurastacker of 400% or effectiveness, but this is definitely playable in the beginning. The gear is relatively affordable. There's nothing here that's like worth more than 10x. And a lot of these items, if you do want to play an Aurastacker later on, you will need anyhow. So you'll need all of these jewels. First amount replenishing jewels are pretty much a staple for a lot of builds, and you'll pretty much just always need to buy it. And a lot of these items you buy will go up in price a lot. And this damage will go up to like 10 mil. And with 10 mil, defenses don't even matter that much. 10 mil, everything is going to die pretty much instantly. Because 10 mil on Spark, after you can precast, is probably like 30 mil with the way the skill works with duration. But now I'm going to show you guys some leveling, not leveling clips, some bossing clips. Hopefully tomorrow I can do a feared. I was able to pretty much do the feared. I just inted at the end, and I died to the synth boss like 4 times, but it's definitely doable with its gear level. And once you get to like the appropriate level of 92, 93 and swap over to this tree, then it's definitely going to be good. I think in the videos I only had like 2 million spark DPS or so. And yeah, it's been really fun trying to optimize the build. I literally turned it from a piece of shit character into something that I would actually wholly recommend to people to try out. And I do think that more people should look into maybe trying out low life with Saqawals and no SHAVS, and just having chaos res with bone armor or steel skin, and see how it feels, and let me know. But I hope you enjoy the clips.
Feels like I don't know you. You don't feel the same. It feels like I've lost you, floating into space. All the things we've been through are fading into blue. I would drive to Neptune just to love you more. 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 Floating, holding hands, spacious wonder dance. Oh, freeze the falling tears. We'll be always lost in here. All the things we've been through are fading into blue. I would drive to Neptune just to love you more. Just to love you more. Just to love you more. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Just to love you more.
You can find what I despise within your mind. All the digest have been made up. You believe what they say. Through the heartache, I would stargaze. No invasion today. We've come this far to win and ride alone. So take your chances to embrace the waterfall. Music keeps me on alone. You got the feeling. The music keeps me singing. Music keeps me dancing. Music keeps me dancing. Music keeps me dancing. Music keeps me on alone. You got the feeling. The music keeps me singing. Music keeps me dancing.
I hope everyone enjoyed the Boston clips. This character's damage is actually not so bad anymore. I know when I first started it, man, I couldn't even kill like Minotaur. I couldn't even kill Phoenix, but now it takes like a couple seconds, and the Shaper invitation is actually doable. So it's actually pretty good. I actually forgot to talk about the gem links. The gem links are kind of like up in the air. Pinpoint is actually a really good gem, so I'm actually running it right now because it's very good damage. There's actually like something to be said about maybe taking Intensify. So you get what extra Intensify stack. You see this 5.079 mil goes to 5.8 mil. So 3 points for that damage is pretty good. That's just something to consider. I
When
think
I'm
Pinpoint
ready
is
and
actually a
not
very
before.
important gem early on for maximizing damage. Energy Leech is also pretty good. And then you have Cold Pen, Anomalous Spark, Anomalous Inspiration. This doesn't really matter. You can just be regular Inspiration, but Spell Echo. But I think these are the best gems that you could possibly use. And yeah, if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe and ask any questions. I do stream every day, or you can leave some comments down below and I'll try to get to it. But tomorrow, hopefully I'll be able to include a Deathless Feared and maybe an Awakener kill. Because Awakener is pretty much one of the fights with the Chaos damage. I'll include a Hunter kill too, just to show that Chaos damage should not be a worry with this setup. But Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you consider this build. I do think the Storm brand Ascendant is probably better, but there's a huge chance that Agnostic gets nerfed. So this is just my take on the Aurastacker. I will probably try to make like an Armageddon brand cremation leveling guide once I see the patch notes and that I see that the build is not nerfed. But I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.